This is News 8 Now at 6.
The Phantom Flu, the Leisure Suit, and Little Princess Redwing, all grown up. Those are the headlines in News 8 then. Here's News 8 Now's Dave McKinley.
10 years ago this week, as a massive $37 million expansion of Rochester's War Memorial got underway, the California jury, which convicted the brothers Menendez of killing their parents, spared them a death sentence. And in Mount Morris, a lot of attention was being paid to Michael Bedell, just back from Georgia, where he claimed to have been lost for 40 days in the Okefenokee swamp. Though he offered up his still stench-filled clothes and his own legs, all bug-bitten and scabby, as living proof of the ordeal, a lot of folks felt, and still do, that he made the whole thing up this week in 1996. 20 years ago this week, public interest author and perennial political candidate Mark Green launched the first of his many fruitless bids to be elected to some form of statewide office or another, in this case U.S. Senate. Then, as now, the first really warm weather of the spring sent us scurrying to Ontario Beach and Charlotte to interview people in shirt sleeves. The difference now would be their choice of phrase to describe such a day.
It's mint.
Do you hear that? She says it was mint, which used to be a way to say sweet, which, come to think of it, I haven't heard since the time when that ugly chain-link fence still bordered the beach this week in 1986. 30 years ago this week, and just 2 months after 3 soldiers at Fort Dix died from a heretofore unknown strain of influenza, scientists on orders from a panicked government produced, in record time, a vaccine to stem what was feared to be a pandemic for the ages. This week's News 8 Then Pop Quiz: what form of flu had us all a dither, and some might say unnecessarily so, this week in 1976? Remember, this was back when the Leisure Suit may well have reached the height of its popularity. Thank goodness. 40 years ago this week, with the baseball season just around the corner, it was time to pick that year's Little Princess Redwing. And among a bevy of little beauties judged on poise and personality, one stood out, 9-year-old Sandra Larkin, who submitted a poem for her contest essay. How do we know? Well, let's just say there's some things you never forget.
Scream, holler, yell, shout, let me call the people out to see the Wings play their game and hope their win will bring them fame. Very 9-year-oldish. But it worked.
Indeed it did. And it was all News 8 Then.
Here's the answer to this week's News 8 Then pop quiz about the flu, which had us so flustered 30 years ago this week. It was swine flu. The rush to produce a vaccine to deal with the pandemic, which never materialized, also brought tragic results. 50 people died from being inoculated. Close to 600 more were crippled, and not one case of swine flu ever materialized outside of the 3 which set off a national panic in 1976.